Hello and welcome to math class with Mr. Head. Today we're going to be talking about dividing decimals by a whole number. So what exactly do I mean when I say that we're going to divide decimals by a whole number? Well, if you take a look up here, we have a decimal and we're dividing it by a whole number. Today we're learning what do we do when there's a decimal in our dividend, but we have a whole number for a divisor. Later in the week, I'm going to show you what happens or what do you do if you have a decimal over here in the divisor. But today we're focusing if we have a whole number here and we have a decimal over here. How do we answer those questions? And I'm going to show you two different ways of doing this. I'm going to show you how to use partial quotients, and I'm going to show you how to use long division or the standard algorithm. Okay, because I know some of you guys feel more comfortable using partial quotients. I'll show you how to divide decimals using that method. I'll also show you how to divide decimals using the standard algorithm or using long division. I'll start off with the partial quotient method. So when we're dividing decimals using the partial quotient method, the first thing that we want to do is we want to come up with an estimate for our answer. So I would estimate that 8 and 12 hundredths divided by 4, that's pretty close to 8 divided by 4, which equals 2. So we know that our answer is going to be pretty close to 2. Now let's go ahead, now that we come up with an estimate, let's go ahead and divide this. And we're going to divide it as if it were a whole number. So we'll set this up as if we were dividing it 812 divided by 4. So how many groups of 4 can we take out of 812? Let's go ahead and start off with 100. 100 groups of 4 would be 400. 812 minus 400 would give me 412 left over. I can take another 100 groups of 4 out of this. 100 groups of 4 is 400. 412 minus 400 is 12. I can take 3 groups of 4 out of 12, which would be 12. 12 minus 12 equals 0. So we have no remainder in this problem. We just need to add up our partial quotients. 100 plus 100 plus 3 equals 203. So our answer is 203 if this were a whole number, but this is a decimal. So now we need to place our decimal. And we're going to place our decimal using estimation. You guys will remember from a lesson a couple weeks ago, we used estimation to help us solve some decimal division problems. So our estimate was 2. So where can we place the decimal so that our answer is closest to our estimate? That's right, our decimal needs to go right there behind the 2. So our answer is going to be 2 and 3 hundredths. 8 and 12 hundredths divided by 4 equals 2 and 3 hundredths. Now let's talk about how we would do this with long division. Okay, if we're using long division, we're going to set up our problem the same way that we normally would. 812 divided by 4. I go ahead and I include my decimal point in there. However, I'm going to divide this as if that was a whole number. Okay, I'm going to divide it like it's a whole number, and then after I finish dividing it, I will place my decimal. So, how many times will 4 go into 8? It'll go in there 2 times. 2 times 4 is 8. 8 minus 8 is 0. Bring down the 1. 4 will go into 1 0 times. 0 times 4 is 0. 1 minus 0 is 1. Bring down the 2. 4 will go into 12. 3 times 4 is 12. 12 minus 12 is 0. So once again, we came up with 203 as our answer. However, we need to place the decimal. So when you're dividing using the standard algorithm, all you need to do is take the decimal from your dividend and move it up into your quotient. So as long as you lined up everything correctly, all you need to do is move your decimal up into your quotient. So this is how you do this standard algorithm or partial quotients. Okay, class, there's one other thing I want to show you. I want to show you what do you do if you're dividing a decimal by a whole number and you end up with a remainder. I want to show you one of the options that you can use. One of those options is to round the remainder, or to round the quotient to the nearest number. So let me show you how to do that. I'm going to use the standard algorithm for this, the long division algorithm, but you could also use this with partial quotients as well. 5 will go into 4 0 times. 5 will go into 41 8 times. 8 times 5 is 40. 41 minus 40 is 1. We'll bring down our 4. 5 will go into 14 2 times. 2 times 5 is 10. 14 minus 10 is 4. So we see here we have our answer is 8.2, but we have a remainder of 4. So what do we do with that remainder? For today's lesson, I want you to use the remainder to round your quotient. With this answer, we know that our answer is a little more than 8 2/10, but it's less than 8 3/10. We have to decide if our quotient is closer to 8 2/10 or 8 3/10. If I were to write the remainder as a fraction, 4/5, I would see that 4/5 is more than half. So we are more than halfway to 8 3/10. So our answer is closer to 8 3/10. So I will round this up to 8 3/10. To review today's lesson, when dividing a decimal by a whole number, you can use one of two methods. You can either use partial quotients or you can use long division. If you're using partial quotients, make sure that you make your estimate, divide as if it is a whole number. If you have a remainder, round the quotient, and then use your estimate to place your decimal. If we're dividing using long division, we're going to divide just like we were dividing a whole number. If we have a remainder, let's go ahead and round our quotient. And then finally, just place the decimal in the quotient. Move the decimal from the dividend up to the quotient. And as you're working on your assignment today, feel free to come back and watch any part of this video that you need to, or pause on this page so that you can remember the steps in dividing decimals.